I'm Richard Gearhart, founder of Gearhart Law, a full-service intellectual property law firm specializing in patents, trademarks, and copyrights.
And I'm Elizabeth Gearhart, not an attorney. I do marketing for Gearhart Law, and I have my own startup.
Welcome to Passage to Profit, the road to entrepreneurship, where we talk with inventors, small businesses, and discuss the intellectual property that helps them flourish. And on today's show, we have Tanya Eberhart, who's the founder of BrandFace, author and host of Be Bold Branding podcast.
And we have Christopher Depaolo, who has Protecs. So he helps you do a project and controls costs in a very unique way, better than anybody else. And we're going to let him tell you all about it. And then we have Martha Lewis with the complete sleep solution. And I got to tell you, I was really surprised when I read the write-up on her because this is really different. So I'm really looking forward to hearing her talk about this.
Yeah, me too. I just hope we don't all fall asleep during the broadcast. Not because of the way you present, but it's like once you start thinking about these things. So anyway, before we get to our distinguished panel.
Okay, IP in the news. So I found this article.
Yeah, go ahead.
By Bob Zeidman, Can a Human Patent a Space Alien's Invention?
What a fascinating question here, because, you know, the government has been releasing UFO footage, and I, for one, am pretty confident that there are aliens who do visit the Earth on a regular basis.
And pretend to be people sometimes.
And yeah, sometimes they pretend to be people. And so it's a major concern to me, because if somebody who is an alien comes into the office looking like a human being and I file a patent for them, there's a question about whether or not that's actually going to be a valid patent. So Bob took the trouble to actually run through the analysis. And the bottom line is no, that if you are an alien, you can't legitimately get a patent under the US patent laws. Right. But he makes some interesting comments. And the first one is, he talks about pirated technology. So for a long time, the U.S. was, you relied on technology that they got from other countries. This was like back right around the Revolutionary War times, the 1800s. And the laws were set up in a way that people could patent inventions from like Europe or somewhere else, and they wouldn't have to, they could get a US patent for it, which is really kind of the reverse of the way we think about intellectual property now, where we think we're like the major drivers of intellectual property, and other countries are ripping off our technology. So
there's also the Patent Cooperation Treaty now, so all the countries are working together, right?
Right, and now everybody pretty much has the same rules. But he references this guy who Francis Cabot Lowell, who invented the power loom. Well, he actually saw one in England, brought it over to the United States, he patented it, and made a fortune on it. And normally you can't do that because you have to be the real inventor.
Right. But I like the one Samuel Slater sailed around the world in 1789, memorized the inventions he came across, and he memorized these spinning frames and got a U.S. patent for water-powered textile mill, becoming very wealthy. President Andrew Jackson dubbed him the father of American manufacturers. The English dubbed him Slater the Traitor.
So anyway, enough of this. It's time for Richard's Roundtable. And so it's time to get the view of our guests on this very important topic of whether aliens from outer space can or should be able to get U.S. patents. So we're going to start with Tanya. Tanya, welcome to the show. Great to see you. So do you have any thoughts on this?
Oh, what a fascinating subject. So, you know, I say if the rules and the laws exist, you have to abide by the laws of the land, right? So when aliens invade, if they don't invade legally, right? and they don't, and they're, you know, not adhering to the laws of the land, then, you know, I mean, yes, you should be able to patent something that an alien invents.
Right.
Yes.
And we're talking about space aliens here, folks,
Yes.
not other types of aliens.
Yes, of course. Absolutely. Yeah.
So no, that's an interesting comment. And the same debate came up with AI and computer generated inventions. And the question was, could a computer own a patent? And the courts decided no, you couldn't do that. So I guess alien, would also be in that same kind of category, right? Tanya, what do you have to say?
It's interesting in that I guess it shouldn't matter whether you're an alien or not. If you're a creator, right, you're a creator and you should have the right to protect your work, regardless of race, creed, or whatever
Or
alienship you are.
Planetary origin, right?
Right.
That is really an expansive view of intergalactic life. And so we're I think that's a valid point. If an alien had appear, they would probably have lots of things that they could patent because they would probably know stuff that we don't know, right? So I guess they could try to take over the world through the patent system, and if they.
They'd have to
Well, I
find a
guess I have a
patent
question.
attorney who can
Yeah, I was going to
understand
say, and I have a question for Richard. So if they patent something here, would they have to patent it as well in their universe, or is their patent a universal patent?
I think I'm going to punt on that one.
Okay.
Yeah, sort of the intergalactic PCT. All right. Well, Chris, welcome to the show. Chris, tell us what you think about this topic.
Well, I think practically, first of all, without credit card or monetary dollars, they couldn't pay you, Richard, to
That's
get
true.
that. So it's probably impossible for them to get that in the first place. But that being said, I wouldn't think we should allow them to do it, because the idea would be that we could understand their technology, which is probably far advanced from ours, and therefore it's to help us get ahead in our technology escalation as well. So by then patenting might limit the ability of Americans or Earthlings to advance technology.
That's kind of where I'm at. I think they would, we have to learn how to defend ourselves. And if we're getting, I mean, could you imagine all the infringement suits that could be brought by the aliens that would just like paralyze the court system and the American economy? It could be an awful thing. So Martha, well, welcome to the show. What do you think about all of this stuff?
Well, I don't know as much about the legal ramifications of everything, but I tend to agree with Kenya that it should be inclusive. And if they are on this earth inventing things that can help us, then they should be allowed to patent it as well.
Oh, that's and I definitely get that. I think that is a very inclusive approach. So anyway, it was very interesting topic, probably not the most practical one we've had on our show, but since Chris DiPaolo showed up tonight or today, we decided to have a little fun. So
I forgot to say something that came from IP Watchdog. That's where I found it.
Yeah, giving credit where it's due. So our guest today is Tanya Eberhart, and she is the founder of BrandFace and author and host of the Be Bold branding podcast. And we're really looking forward to her presentation today. She focuses on personal branding. And as Elizabeth mentioned before the show, everybody has a personal brand, whether they know it or not. The question is just, what is that brand? And so, Tanya, maybe you can tell us a little bit about what is a personal brand as compared to other types of brands.
Well, a personal brand is basically, instead of how you feel about a particular company or the reputation of a company, what that company is known for, it's how you feel about a particular person and what they're known for. And we focus a lot on helping people who are the face of their business. So they're very closely tied, right? Mm-hmm. They're closely tied because the person's story is the reason the business exists in our case. And so they're very closely tied, but I would agree with Elizabeth, everybody does have a personal brand. You just want to make sure or that you ask yourself the question, is it representing you well, the way you deserve to be seen?
So that's an interesting question. So what if your personal brand is unsavory in some respects? Do you, do you, you know, like at the age of 14, I was arrested or something like that. And I vowed never to go back to jail. Now, that's not my brand, but I mean, everybody has sort of these different elements in their life, right? And so do you only pick like the good parts or the bad parts? I mean, how do you develop that personal brand?
That's a great question. And I can tell you that most of us here in this world that have a personal brand and we're the face of our business, we got there because of challenges. And some of those challenges might have been going to jail at 14. They might have been coming from, an alcoholic type of a family. They might have been domestic issues that you had, within your family. They were definitely things that created a challenge in your life and you learned how to overcome that challenge, or that presented a problem in your life and you developed a solution for that problem. 99 times out of 100, that is the case. There's some sort of conflict that results in solution that results in a fantastic business.
That sounds good. And we can talk about almost anything now, right? I mean, the way the world is now compared to the way it was 20 years ago, there were certain things you just wouldn't say. And now it really seems that tolerance has really helped us be able to express some of the challenges that we did face, right? So it's a world that's more accepting, I think, and finds interest in those stories.
Yeah, that's very true. Tolerance is very important when it comes to personal branding because you're being very vulnerable. You're being very transparent in sharing your story because, our mantra is people don't do business with a logo, they do business with a person. So you want to get to know that human being behind the story. And that human being has flaws, right? We're not all perfect. I didn't get here being perfect. I'm not perfect now. I don't have a perfect story. And most people don't. And I think that is what makes us human to one another. And it's frankly the part that I love the most. It's like, how do we take the things that have been the most painful and the biggest struggles in your life and turn them into something so beautiful that you can share with the world that can change somebody's life? And I realized, we might have thought we were coming here today to talk about personal branding and photo shoots and logos, but it's a whole lot more than that. In the end, it's really about creating what you want people to see and know about you.
Right. And a couple things. First of all, in my notes here, it says your favorite statement is a great brand doesn't just change the way others see you, it changes the way you see yourself. So that's one thing. But I feel like we're kind of leading into this question that I wanted to ask you. And that is, what is your 3D formula to a bold and unbeatable brand? Because we all need that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I could go on a lot of interviews and talk about the fluff of it. It changes your life and you do, but nobody's going to believe it if you don't tell them exactly how to get it done. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the formula. And that's where we knew when we entered into this field, it's like, we can't just, talk about the lovely, fluffy things. We have to actually put some formula behind it. So the 3D formula is define, develop, and display. And just super quick, that define means you need to define that ideal customer. Who is it that you're trying to attract into your business and your life every day? Your point of differentiation, what are those things that make you so unique? Not better, because better is subjective. What might be better for Kenya might not be better for Chris, but different is inarguable. So we look at those things that make you unique. And then it's kind of like this beautiful formula you put together to say, okay, based on who you're trying to attract and the things that truly set you apart, which of these are we going to focus on and put out there first, put out in front to help us attract the people that we want to attract. So that's the definition phase. In the development, it's simply creating all those things that people think about when it comes to branding. They think about logos and colors and photo shoots and brand messaging, which to me is by far the most important part. It's that language that articulates kind of who you are, who you serve, how you serve them, what qualifies you to do that, and how it makes their life better. And then once you complete the development of all those parts and pieces that allow you to communicate what you're all about, then you display that. You put your brand messaging on social media, on your website, on all your collateral materials. You put the imagery that goes along with that message, the photos of you, the logos, things like that. You pull all that together, whether it means design or just, popping them into a template on social media where you've got your about information. Now you've got the really great about information that's really dialed in. So those are the three, and they're super simple things to do, but they're very transformational, because when people do those things, it does change the way they see themselves. And that to me is the most incredible part of what we do. The making money and helping them increase their business is great, but I love to see that transformation when they say, that's me. Wow. I didn't realize I'd accomplished all that.
Yeah, I gotta say one thing. You have to be careful about the photos you put on Google, because he's laughing. So
I know exactly what you're thinking about.
So if you go into where your business shows up on Google Maps, they have this new thing where you can put updates about your business. And so I did that, but I don't know how to get new pictures on there, because you can only use the pictures that Google has.
I actually had some hair when that picture was taken. So
it's what Google served me up. And it was these really old pictures, and it was our attorneys, and one of them has lost weight. And he's like, could you put that up? Another one. Anyway, but that was kind of funny. But you do have to be careful, because those pictures, they're from 15 years ago. They hang around forever on Google.
They hang around forever. And I'll tell you where a lot of them are coming from: the old Google Plus format, right? They're coming from there, and your Google Plus just disappeared, but it's all the stuff that was in there years ago stayed there. Right? And then you don't always think of, like on Amazon, sometimes when you Google me, my old book cover shows up from Amazon on the Google search.
Yeah.
Well, I got rid of that old cover a long time ago, but it still continues to show up. So I go into Google, I try to find where I change that out. I change it out. It still shows up sometimes. So you do have to be careful with what goes out there in the, cyber world, for sure, because it does hang around. You can control a lot of that. There's some that you just, like, if you try and figure it out, we're both going to be here till Sunday and no smarter.
right.
Well, so I see a new business for a tech person.
There you go.
Exactly.
Instead of reputation management, we have photo management.
Right.
So I wanted to go to Kenya, though, because of all the people I know, I think Kenya has really thought about her personal brand. So I follow her on Instagram, and she's always got these great photos, and you really should, check out her Instagram feed. But I think, Kenya has really evolved this brand as a trainer, and so I just wanted to ask Kenya, do you have any questions for Tanya? And maybe you could even share a little bit about how you developed your personal brand.
Oh, well, thank you for all those kind words, Richard. I'll tell you, in the beginning, I didn't know anything of what I was doing at all. I was just winging it when it came to social media. And I think for me, I sat down with somebody one time, and they were like, you got to figure out who you want to be and what you want to be to who you're trying to target. So for me, I just wanted to leverage my own weight loss journey and struggles and trials and tribulations with fitness into my own personal brand story. And those are some of the things that I talk about. So that's, when you go to my page, you'll see on there. And then obviously, the partnership with Elizabeth and Richard, Passage to Profit. I've kind of merged the two together, because I believe having a strong body and having a strong business kind of go hand in hand. And so I feel like what we're doing with the show and what I'm doing in my personal life complement one another. So that's kind of been my strategy, so to speak. But what I'd like to ask you and have you talk a little bit about is, how does your brand story and strategy differ from advertising? Because I think some people think it's the same thing, and it's kind of not.
Okay, I love that question, Kenya. And first of all, I'll check out your Instagram account, your social media. It sounds wonderful, and it sounds to me like you've done so many of the right things.
Oh, maybe.
So you bet. So the first thing I'd like to say is there's a lot of confusion between marketing and branding. And so I decided a long time ago, let's just simplify this, take it down to the brass tacks. So marketing is utilizing different vehicles, marketing vehicles or channels to get a message and image out there to the world, right? It doesn't matter whether it's a billboard on a major interstate or a radio commercial or television or YouTube videos. Your brand is the message and image that you put into those marketing vehicles that you put out there for the world to see, right? So there's a lot of confusion there, and it's a great question. So they're so closely tied, right? So when you say what's the difference between that and and advertising, close cousin to marketing, of course, that's it. It's just advertising is getting the message and image out there, but the brand is the message and image that you put out there. And the biggest mistake that a lot of entrepreneurs make is trying to market before the brand is built. There's a lot of confusion around this too, I've got to say, because there are a lot of companies out there saying, I can help you build your brand. I can help you build your brand. But really, when you dial it in, it's like they're building your website, or they're helping you with a YouTube strategy, or they're building a funnel for you if you're a coach or consultant, right? But they're not building the brand. And the brand that has to be built first is kind of like the foundation of a house. If you're a contractor, you can't just put windows on nothing. You have to have that foundation.
I've been taking notes here. That's an excellent description of that. Thank you. And so what kind of things, you said some things that go into your personal brand. How important is appearance? So Richard has his brand here with his orange tie and his suit because he's an attorney, and that's kind of his color now. So do you need to wear the same clothes all the time? Do you need to have your hair the same way? How important is appearance to that?
I love to have some consistency in this punch of color, right? Richard, we're kindred spirits. You see that orange wall back there?
I do. I noticed that. Yeah. That's great.
And the orange shirt that I'm wearing, and the orange in the logo, and the orange in the books behind me, the orange in the coffee mug, right? It's kind of like my suit that I put on every day. But no, I don't wear orange every day. But when I'm on calls like this, when I'm on shows like this, I try to represent, right? Because I feel it. We say it's kind of like breathing your brand, that you really want to just own it all the time. And I just so happen to love orange, right? So it's easy for me when it comes to colors, that is. But your brand simply could just be, I'll give you a great example. And I don't know where this car dealership is. My partner, Michael, couldn't be on this interview today, but he knows this guy. There's a car dealership, and this gentleman at the car dealership calls himself the best dressed car salesman, period. He doesn't even put his name on his business cards. It just says, look for the best dressed salesman. And I think it's phenomenal, because you walk in and there is no question, that's the guy, that's the dapper gent right over there that I'm going to be looking for, right? And I love that. So it doesn't say he has to wear a certain color or a certain suit. He could be dressed in, for golf that day or whatever, but he's going to be well dressed for whatever he's doing. And I love that. I think that more than anything, you just need to be yourself. I know that sounds like a lot of fluff too, because it can be read a million different ways, but you just got to be who you are. So if Kenya in her photos wears, gorgeous dresses and beautiful clothing, or whether she wears, sports stuff for yoga, I don't know, because I haven't been to her channel yet, but I'm going there. But that's who she is, and that's representative. I just love the pop of color. I like having some consistency in every image that you have, that when people are scrolling through a feed, it's like, boom, there's the orange, there's BrandFace, right? I like that.
Yeah.
Wow, that was great.
That was great. Yeah. I mean, I wear suits today to work every day. And I did it through the pandemic, even when I was the only one in my office. But it just felt that's like my personality. And I started as an attorney, I started wearing suits a long time ago. And so that's kind of my uniform now. And most people are into the casual dress thing, which is fine. But I feel like this is what people think of when they think of an attorney, right? And so I'm, and plus I like suits too. So
Well, I'm trying to migrate out of the sweatpants.
I favor yoga pants myself, so I get you.
okay. Well, Tanya, this has been great. We have to take a short commercial break, though. We'll be right back with more Passage to Profit right after this. Welcome back. It's Passage to Profit, everyone. Our special guest today, Tonya Eberhart. And Tanya, we were talking during the break about who you consider to be your best branded celebrities and also best branded business people too, because this is a show about entrepreneurism.
Right. And this part's easy for me because we work with business stars. That's who we help. So Oprah Winfrey definitely is amazing, an amazing personal brand. Richard Branson.
So what makes their brands outstanding and so much?
Okay.
So much
it's
better?
Because they weave their personal story and their mission into their business, right? And so, Oprah's has a story. It's a tragic story of a really rough family life, but she struggled through television. She really did an incredible job in her career. She launched obviously she became the world's first female billionaire in the businesses that she created, but she created those businesses as an extension of her own story. She wanted to interview other people with great stories, talk about their lives, share inspiration with other people. And I think just anybody whose business is an extension of who they truly are, that's a fantastic personal brand.
Right. And Richard Branson pretty much defined the look for male tech entrepreneurs.
He did. He truly did.
Well, Bill Gates too, though. Bill Gates was the guy with the sweater and the khakis, right?
Yeah. The jacket over the jeans now.
Is that right? That's
that's the Richard Branson look. But yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not going to say anything about Bill Gates. I don't think that's quite the look anybody would want to emulate.
I know. I've seen pictures of him recently, and I'm with you there. So, but Bill, if you're listening, please don't take offense and turn off my internet or anything like that. But so anyway, no, this is so.
I have a question. Do you have a question?
No, go ahead.
I think we were going to ask her this anyway. We talked about it before, but we want to know how you got the name BrandFace.
Oh, I love that question. Well, I was sitting around one day thinking, okay, what am I going to call this book that I'm writing? Because before this was a business, it was actually meant to be a book series. And we have BrandFace for entrepreneurs, BrandFace for business owners, BrandFace for home improvement professionals, et cetera. So when I was trying to think of this, I thought, okay, exactly what have I learned and what am I helping people to do? Well, I'm trying to help them become the best face of their business, the best face of their brand, put their best face out there so everybody understands, how they serve, who they serve, right? And so the word just came together to me, brand face. Oh, that makes sense, right? But here's the rest of the story. So I go into the office and two people whose opinions I trust very, very much, brilliant minds. I said, what do you guys think about this name, BrandFace? Instantly, both of them stood back for a moment and they said, well, have you thought about this? Or I don't know about that, right? That's when my mama lion comes out, right? And it's like, oh no, I'm not having this conversation anymore. I stepped back quietly, went into my office and trademarked it.
Good for you. You have a lot of trademarks too, I think, right? We saw in the show notes that you have a lot of trademarks. So
yes. And I have to chime in with this really quick because that's the reason I answered the alien question the way that I answered it, because it costs a lot. It's the intellectual property. It costs a lot to trademark things. So if you're not if you infringe on somebody's intellectual property doing those kind of things, then that is upsetting to those of us who work so hard to create those things and then to go to the trouble to trademark those things, right? So,
absolutely.
that comes from just a different perspective of, hey, I've done that. I don't want anybody to steal this thing, right? Because all the information and advice and hopefully inspiration that we give people, that comes from our hearts, but don't steal my trademarks.
Yeah, no, I was gonna, I was gonna,
Don't steal my trademarks.
just getting back to the aliens for a second. How would you do a personal brand for an alien? I guess probably the same way you would do it for a human being, right? So.
Well, yeah, that's a great question again, because personal branding principles are the same no matter what industry you're in. Alien, of course, is a little bit different. But the very first thing I would do, I would really want to brand the very first alien that landed here. Knowingly, right? And that would be like the ultimate branding job. It's like, okay, the world's first, right?
Doesn't normally tell people this, but I'm just kidding. He's the world's. No, I'm just kidding. But
All right, let's go for it. Let's go for it. Yeah, I'm ready, Tanya.
Question about background stories. So, I mean, a lot of us, which is kind of surprising because you always think you're the only one, but a lot of people had really tough childhoods and really had to do a lot of transformations and things. But how much of that do you put out there? Because pretty soon you just sound like, you're whining and
you're a whiny victim or something.
Yeah. So how much do you use that?
That's a great question, by the way.
Thank you.
The best question today so far, because that hits at my heart. I believe that we should share our stories as much as we're comfortable sharing, because you got to ask yourself, why are you doing it? Okay, a lot of people are doing it for two reasons. Number one, it helps them with their own therapy. It really helps them come into who they are, come into themselves, right? The other reason they're doing it is to help somebody else avoid that or deal with that in a way that makes them realize or makes them feel like they're giving back. I went through all this. I figured this out. Maybe I can help you figure that out too, or help you avoid that. So to me, it's really important. Like last year, I took on one of the most meaningful projects I've ever done. I wrote my dad's memoir. And my dad is a recovering alcoholic and addict. He was raised in North Georgia in the mountains, and his parents, both my grandparents, were moonshiners, which sounds pretty cool on that, at the onset, right? And it actually is. It's a pretty cool thing. But with that kind of lifestyle, because there was no industry here, we didn't have anything in the mountains of North Georgia then. There were no jobs, not very few, right? Mm-hmm. So that's what they did to make a living, to feed their families. Well, when you're raised in that and both your parents become violent alcoholics, where does that leave you, right? So in telling that story, it was such a cool thing to go through that with my dad. We had probably a year and a half worth of meetings, phone meetings, because I was in Ohio and he was in Georgia, and we had phone meetings, and I learned all about him and why he did the things he did. And it brought so much clarity to who he really was. And it helped me appreciate him even more. And when the book came out, it really changed things for him. It helped him. And when I asked him, why do you want to do this? He said, to apologize to the people I've done wrong. And that was a big, big thing for him and for me.
Wow. That is very, very powerful.
Yeah.
Tanya, do you have any questions or comments?
No, I just love that you share that, right? Because I think there's power in vulnerability. And we were having this conversation, me, Elizabeth, and Richard, and one of our producers. And I forget the term that Noah used at the table. Richard, maybe you can help me recall. Adorable. Right?
Right.
Adorable. He was describing like the platform and what we're doing as adorable. And, you always think about adorable as being something like cute or something of that effect, but adorable is really, it's something that's admirable or impactful, right? So I love that, you share that, because I think there is something so important about being just transparent and, relating back to the audience, and people connect to what's real. So thank you for sharing.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you.
And so what you said though really rang true for me, which is it a lot depends on the intent for the sharing. And so if you can
Yes.
find stories in your background that can help people, then I think that is a very powerful thing. One of the reasons I started Gearhart Law, where Elizabeth and I started, it was because I left corporate feeling very beat up, and I did not like working in a corporate environment. It just didn't fit me, and I felt like I had to make a lot of personal compromises that I wasn't willing to make anymore. And so Elizabeth encouraged me to start Gearhart Law. And my stated goal at the time was to help other people escape from jobs that they didn't like and start their own thing. And so that they could be, they didn't have to continue suffering like that. And so I think that is used the right way, that can be, I think, that can be very, very powerful.
Do you
Motivation.
mind if I share one other quick story with you about that?
Sure. No.
One of our clients is a real estate agent in the Virginia area. And when we go through and do people's brand messaging, it's a very emotional time for them, because it's sometimes the very first time anybody has really looked in from the outside and actually seen inside to who that person truly is, right? And how much they've really accomplished. And we call it unveiling their inner star. So Tom is his name, and he puts information in his biography document and submits it. And it says something about he had lost his son at the age of 1. He died in at a pool incident. He drowned in a pool, in the family pool. And so when we pull the brand messaging together and we write the biography, I had our team intentionally put that in there at first. So I get on the call with him and our brand messaging reveal, and I say, Tom, I want to have a candid discussion with you for just a minute. I don't want to put out anything that you're not comfortable with, but I want to ask you, a couple of things. When you meet with clients, your real estate clients, does the subject of your son come up? How often does the subject of your son come up? And he said, almost always, but especially if they have small children in the home. We talk about safety issues. And that's when I knew it was very important to him to share that message. And that's the day we together decided that part of the story would go into his biography. And so that was important to him. It's not about airing your dirty laundry. It's about connecting and fulfilling your own purpose in it too.
Wow.
Yeah, that's really.
That's really profound.
Did it take a lot of courage for him to put that in like a written document like that? Because I could see him talking about it privately with clients, but maybe not putting it out there.
I think that he wondered about it. I know he did, because when we had the conversation that day, he said, I don't mind putting this out there. He said, it's been 6 or 7 years, since this happened. He said, you never really healed from something like that, but he said, I've come a long way. And that's when, it was a very purposeful decision. So we talked through, okay, what does this mean? What negative impact might it have? What positive impact might it have? And we just had a super heart-to-heart discussion that day and decided together to make that happen. I think it was hard for him at first, but then when he realized why it meant so much to him that other people's children were safe, then that made all the difference.
Right. I mean, because understanding it from his perspective, but also maybe taking it a little different if you're in a business context and you see something like that and prospective client reads it, they're going to be wondering, they may feel sympathetic, or they may say, you know, we have kids, maybe this is not the right fit for us, right? So
It could, and you risk that, right? But you risk anything in
Right.
life, right? I mean, you put something in a bio, somebody's going to hate it. Let's just be real.
Oh,
So,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
somebody's going to think
Absolutely.
it's cheesy. They're going to think it's stupid. They're going to think your logo looks ugly. I mean, somebody's going to dislike something that everyone does. I just want to attract my people, right? And he wanted to attract his people. And that's really, at the end of the day, all we can control.
And you're talking about being authentic too, because
Absolutely.
that's a big piece of his authentic self at this point in his life.
It is.
So is he glad that he did it? And does he feel like it's made a difference?
Yeah, I haven't spoken with him in probably a year or two. So this was several years back that he came through our program, but he's a wonderful man. And he the last we talked, he was very happy he did it and felt like it was a way to kind of break the ice and kind of get that out there and get people to look at him as very, very human.
Right.
Right. So if people want to find you to work with you, where do they go?
Yeah. BrandFaceStar.com is the best place to go. You can kind of listen to our customer reviews, the video reviews. You can get free training. You can connect with us, jump right to the front of the line if you want to talk to us. So BrandFaceStar.com.
Sounds great. So we have to take a break now, another commercial break. You're listening to Passage to Profit with Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart, and our special guest, Tanya Eberhart. We'll be back with more Passage to Profit right after this. Welcome back, everybody, to Passage to Profit. This is Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart with our special guest today, Tonya Eberhart, founder of BrandFace, author and host of the Be Bold Branding podcast. And I'm definitely going to check out that podcast. I think this is a fascinating topic. And I think, you know, if you can bring your personal brand into your business, I think that's, you know, better for your clients, but it's also better for you, right?
Well, branding has a lot more elements and goes a lot deeper than you think. And I had never realized that before hearing Tanya talk about it. So I think she's worth getting in touch with if you have questions.
Absolutely. So it's time for Power Move. Kenya is our power mover, and she's going to tell us who's highlighted in Power Move today.
Yeah, so for Power Move today, and I'm glad that we're talking about branding stories and like how to get your brand out there and being a really good storyteller, because we're going to talk about a famous TikToker today by the name of Kahabi Lame. Fortune has reported that Lame brings in about $750,000 per social media post, which is not lame at all, right?
Wow.
It's crazy.
I got that, Kenya.
So how does that break down per word? You know, is that
Oh
like,
God, I don't even know.
I don't know. It's like, can I buy one word,
So
please?
what-
I've only got
So what-
$15,000.
do that so special.
So he's got millions of followers, and I didn't get a chance to really go check out his page and like see what he does, but he is more like a lifestyle type of brand, and it's working from him because he was able to land a sponsorship for $450,000 with Hugo Boss. So he's making money all over the place. I'm like, what am I doing wrong?
You're not
know,
doing
right? Good
anything
for
wrong,
him.
Kenya. You're doing
Like
great.
I can't even get $10,000 a post, let alone 750,000.
Well, maybe you need to start smaller, you know, like $10 a post or $100.
Something.
Yeah, you definitely have a reach.
The old lady of TikTok.
So he's our power move for today.
Well, that's a
Good.
great one. And so Elizabeth,
Yes.
Elizabeth, everybody has, as you know, has had as a project, and she's going to talk today about it. So
I talk about it every week. So I have a startup. It's a video directory of small businesses online. I did a lot of interviews for it through COVID. Now I'm working on getting a new website done. I also drafted a patent application for it, which had to be filed. Well, I filed the provisional. I've talked about this every week, but it's worth repeating for people that don't listen every single week. But
yeah, I don't think there's anybody out
No.
there in that category, though, right?
So if you are doing a project or an invention or anything, and you're not really sure that this is going to be what you're going to sell in the end, We advise doing a provisional patent to start that holds your filing date, which is really important because that means people that file after you don't get your filing, that don't get the rights that you get them because you were there first. And then you have a year to work on what you're doing. So especially for inventions that you're going to have manufactured, during that year, you want to get the prototype done and you want to make sure the factories can actually produce that prototype because a lot of times there's changes because they can't do it. But anyway, this was kind of a tech project, so I didn't have to worry about that. But I've been working with a coach and I'm part of this peer advisory group. And lo and behold, after a year, almost a year, I made a whole bunch of changes to the project. So I basically I'm a patent agent, so I can do patent work. So I basically had to rewrite my entire patent application and redo all the figures. And it was due today to be filed because the 1-year mark is today. So yes, it's been filed. Richard's name's on it too, because he contributed ideas to the patent as well.
You know, that is, it's funny, after being in this business for 30 some years, the first time I've been an inventor on a patent.
Well, congratulations.
But it had to be my wife's idea. So
The idea is like we brainstorm together a lot about different things. And sometimes we don't even remember who came up with what idea.
And sometimes we don't even remember anything. So
well, anyway, so the patent application is filed as a non-provisional application. So I am very relieved and very happy about that.
great. Well, we'll look forward to what happens next at the patent office. So,
Well, we're gonna have to wait a while because they sit on it. So no, I've got other
let's pray
things.
that we're still on the air by the time the patent office gets to it.
Okay, well, let's move on. So I want to introduce our first presenter, Chris Depaolo with Protecs. Now, Chris is a client of Richard's, and he has got just this amazing way of helping people build. So I'm going to let you talk about it, Chris. So welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here. Yeah, I'll give you a little background. I mean, I'm a dual degree engineer from Drexel University, and I founded Protecs in 2005 as a specialized design build firm that solely focuses on high-tech manufacturing and R&D facilities for the pharmaceutical, biotechnology, medical device, specialty chemical, semiconductor, and nanotechnology industries. And we work nationally with 5 offices, and we're headquartered out of Plymouth Meeting, Pennsylvania. We're also the only firm that has, thanks to Richard, a patent with which is based on the method of designing and building to a targeted cost for high-tech facilities, throughout the country. That is a really leveraged approach in a collaborative design build manner, where we work with the best-in-class architects, engineers, qualification firms, and bring that have exact experience and the type of task that we're about to do and the type of operation that a client wants to achieve at the end of the day. So this approach really brings together a key team of 150 to 200 years of experience that know exactly the type of process and operations they're trying to achieve. And it's really a leverage model at the very formative stage of a project for a client.
Wow. So let's go back, because I mean, what you're saying is really interesting, because I have never worked with a contractor that takes a budget and then works backwards to make it work. Now, I've dealt with a lot of contractors, right? And the price always goes up,
Well, especially when you're in these industries that he's in, because people think these industries are just bottomless wells of money, right?
Right. And especially when you're in the technical areas, like you were saying, where there's all sorts of compliance issues and safety issues and zoning regulations and all this other stuff. And so to actually, how often do you actually hit the target when it comes to the buildings that you've installations that you've done?
So actually, we've done it pretty much 95% of the time. What we do is, it's really key for us to get the the cost structure from a client, get their budget out of them. So a lot of clients don't want to tell you their budget, right? Because they think if they tell you the budget, you're going to spend all of it and more, right? So, but we know what a facility will cost between, A and C, right? And there's low range and there's high range, and those ranges really change based on the approach to the system designs and redundancy and risk profile. A lot of factors go into that. But we have to get them aligned that we know we can build it between A and C. If they're minus A in their mindset, then we basically say, you go find someone that can do for that and call us when it doesn't work, because we know it can't be done for that from our standpoint. But it's so it's really important to get that understanding of where their budget is, and then we work backwards from their process and understand their performance, conformance, compliance, time to market needs, but all driven toward a cost goal structure. So when we give that ROM, which we call rough order magnitude price up front, the dollar per square foot number based on some formative stage of a program, at the end of the day, we hit that about 95% of the time within a 2 to 3% range of what we said it was going to be from the beginning when we finish.
Wow, that's amazing.
So,
can I ask a question?
Yeah,
So
that's it's your show too.
yeah. So Chris, when
This question is coming from my wife.
I got it. I figured that out, Richard. Thank you.
stop talking, you mentioned design build is what you do. I'm not sure everybody knows what design build is if they've never built a building. So can you explain what design build is?
Great question. There's many forms of design build. So prior to starting Protecs, I worked in a different form of design build. We called it integrated design build, where the one firm I worked for had all the engineers, had all the architects, had all the construction people, had all the compliance people, all in-house. I was in that firm for 15 years, became a principal. We grew it to 9 offices nationwide, 300 people. It was great. But it was frustrating to me as an owner and a principal in the firm. I couldn't get the projects tailored to the client's needs, the specific client need that we had at the time. I always had to bring in my engineering team who wasn't busy. The guys that weren't utilized in the firm, I had to use them to help design the facility. Now they may come with a knowledge base that they don't know how to do it's a tablet manufacturing facility. They do labs, and that's the guy I got to use. Or he worked with a big pharma company like a Merck or a Pfizer, where they have a platinum approach to design and risk tolerance, right? And I'm working for a startup biotech company that can't afford that level of design. So it was very frustrating. And when I formed Protecs, I decided there's no way we're going to have in-house engineering. We're going to have a collaborative design build methodology, which is ours, where we work with the best in class. We pick the best firms, get the principals of those firms on our team, subcontracted under us, where then we design and build, and it's one single point of accountability from a client standpoint. We hold all the contracts. And the difference in design build versus design bid build, where you design it in a vacuum of any builders, and then you put it on the street with drawings, is that we own performance. We own what the client has. If he says, I need this temperature, I need this humidity, I need this purity in my water system, I need, whatever redundancy for my HVAC system, backup power, or what have you, we owe it to them regardless of what the drawings say. We own a performance spec. Whereas in design bid build, the contractors only own what's on the drawings. And if something is missed, it's a change order. So we have very limited change orders unless a client puts in new scope or demands a new space or changes something that we already agreed upon.
Well, that seems like a better way to go.
Yeah, I'm definitely down for that. We're building a doghouse in the backyard.
For Richard when he's back.
I plan to spend a lot of time out there. I know. But
that's funny you say that, Richard, because I've always said our methodology applies to if we're building a doghouse to a space shuttle. It doesn't matter.
I've heard it from you.
It's the approach. it's the approach.
But especially if you're building like a lab that's going to make pharmaceuticals and everything has to be a certain way and government standards and all that, this is a probably much better way to go than having the two entities completely separate, right?
Correct, because it's definitely a gap in communication. All think about it. The communication is now on the onus of the client, who's probably never maybe even built a facility. He may be a scientist, right? Who's coming out of a university who never built a facility. Now he's got to communicate all the things he told the engineers and then communicate that to the construction people. He's in the middle where he's not experienced at doing that. Or he's a guy that maybe did one project in the past, 20 years versus having us take the lead, and we're going to, keep him in the loop and inform him as much as possible.
Well, what I find on any project, any building project, is communication is like,
Oh.
like the hugest thing. So I'm going to go out on a limb here and say, earlier this year, I had the office is painted, right? And so the guy gave me a quote. He came in and he painted everything. And I came upstairs and it's like none of the trim was painted, you know, around the doors. The doors were still brown and they're like 1970s brown. And I said, well, I thought you were going to paint the room. And he's like, well, you didn't say paint the trim, right? You know, and so it resulted in a disagreement. We didn't end up in court, but it was, you know, lots of times people don't have that meeting of the minds, right? Where they have in mind one thing, so, you know, and somebody else has in mind the other thing. And then, you know, that's how you get all these overruns because the client thought that you were going to do this, and then the contractor never had it in his mind. And
Correct.
and when you say on the plans, they seem detailed sometimes, but
Right.
there's a lot of stuff in there that only goes so far, right? I mean,
Or is redundant. It could be boilerplate stuff, doesn't even apply to your job. It's on there and it's not clear what the definition is to you. You don't know how to read plans as a client, right? A lot of times. So
no.
you know, it's very easy to show you things versus we actually do a complete write-up of a basis of design criteria of exactly what we're delivering, what we're doing, who's furnishing it, how to do it. And we do this all in an open book approach. So we're fully auditable. We go out and competitively bid everything that we go purchase or subcontract with. So we get 3 bids or more. If a client says over $10,000, I want to have 3 bids. So he's getting 3 bids and we're doing the analysis and equaling them out and then giving a recommendation. He signs off ultimately what he buys. So he knows exactly what he's getting every time.
Excellent. Well, should we give Tanya a chance to
Yeah,
answer?
I think so.
Tanya, do you have a question or comment?
Just a comment that I really love like how you say, you know, the methodology is the same. It doesn't matter whether you're building this big pharmaceutical building or a doghouse, right? Because personal branding is the same way. It doesn't really matter what you do. The principles of that, the methodology is pretty much exactly the same. And I like the clarity and the expectations. You know, if your client knows what they can expect from you, 99% of the time, you will never have an issue.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
correct.
So
And I think
oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I was just going to say,
Yeah, go ahead. I was just gonna follow up and say, yeah, the biggest thing I think for us, the advantage is get involved as early as possible in the project development because you have much less ability to impact cost later after design's done. It's really in that early formative stages where, okay, how are we setting this facility up to meet all these goals and expectations from the very beginning? And too many times we get called in when the project gets bid out, right? And it's overrun. The project budget is way beyond what their expectation was. And they're saying, can you help us get this down? It's like, there's only a limited amount of value engineering we can do at that point versus if we had been involved in the beginning.
all right. So Kenya, do you have a comment or question?
I do. This sounds like such a seamless process, right? Based on how you describe it, but I'm sure there's some challenges or obstacles
Sure.
that you've encountered or endured. So can you share some of those with us and how you were able to overcome that?
Yeah, definitely. Design build is foreign to a lot of people, and because they have the mindset. I mean, like Richard said, maybe building your bathroom at home or doing your kitchen renovation, and maybe you did design build and they had a bad experience and they have a bad taste, so they don't understand the guarantees and what have you. So it's the communication is key in what you're delivering for them and writing down what their goals and objectives are so that we are based on, you know, what's the program. We make them sign off on their floor plans. We make them sign off on all their process equipment matrix, which basically has all the utilities needed to serve that equipment. And then we take a diversity to size all the infrastructure equipment that's going to feed that equipment. They sign off on that as well. They sign off on the basis of design criteria. So they know exactly what systems and how we're putting in, what type of systems we're putting in. And then of course the cost and the schedule they sign off ultimately on once we define those things and develop the drawings further to bid them out. So, but definitely it's a challenge, and we work in a guaranteed maximum price arrangement, which means we have a contingency, and that's always a struggle. Contingency is in our overall project budget that is for things that we may not have realize we need to deal with or cost. So it's a allowable percentage of the job. So a lot of times, one of the, probably the biggest arguments is clients go, well, I want to make this change so you can use the contingency. I go, well, no, it's not. That's my contingency. That's not your contingency. That's probably the biggest thing. They want to just keep adding things and say, oh, you can take it out of there. I go, no, we got to add to the job. And if I have it left, I'll give it back to you. But I can't promise you that now. We're not that far along.
Yeah, it's hard when you're remodeling or doing something. You're like, well, I could use regular stone, but I really want this like specialty granite here that's 5,000 more.
Right.
So, unfortunately, we have to end this part of our program, but stick around because at the end, we're going to have a little fun exercise, I think. So, Chris, how can people find you?
We are located on LinkedIn, of course, Protecs Inc. On LinkedIn, as far as www.linkedin.com, company Protecs. We're on YouTube as well. We have our website, which is protexinc.com, which is very informative, and we're also on Twitter. So we have lots of. You can get a hold of me on LinkedIn as well. I'm there, and I take messages all the time.
Okay, and I want to just spell it because it doesn't have the H in text. So it's PROTECSINC.com, right?
Correct.
And
Okay.
we trademarked that logo too, by the way.
Excellent. Well, that was an excellent presentation. That's really interesting.
Yeah,
And so,
he's a smart guy. You know,
You think?
he can hold all that stuff in his head and talk about it, right?
Sometime.
Nope.
If my wife is here, maybe she'd say something different too. So who knows?
Nobody's ever accused me.
You've
of
got
being
your own
stupid, for
doghouse,
sure.
right? You charge the cost of it, right?
So, okay. So I want to get a good night's sleep tonight. So I want to talk to Martha Lewis
Right?
with the complete sleep solution. Martha, I want to hear what you have and how you came up with it. I want to hear the story because the notes I got were pretty entertaining.
Yeah, awesome. So I really get to the root cause of why people can't sleep, and go beyond the basic sleep advice that you read everywhere. So I am looking for underlying health issues that are affecting sleep, like gut health and hormone balance and heavy metal toxicity and more. And then I also help with the mental aspect of not being able to sleep. You know, any anxiety and worry people have about sleep, which is really common if you struggle to sleep for a while, and help with stress in life in general, because stress in the mind affects the body over time and can cause the body to break down. And so it's really important to look at both the body and the mind when overcoming something like insomnia.
So just so I understand, heavy metal toxicity is not like bad rock music, right? It's
No.
Okay.
that was a dad joke. Okay.
Oh my God. So the part that I found was kind of amusing, although it's kind of not amusing, but I was just shocked by this, is that you had a parasite that was keeping you awake at night. How did you know? How did you find out about the parasite?
Well, it was kind of a long journey. And, you know, like Tanya was talking about, this has come from my story and my own struggle with sleep, which started in late pregnancy, which I figured was just hormones. There wasn't much I could do about it. But then it continued after my son was born, after I had actually hired a sleep consultant to help with his sleep and become a sleep consultant to help parents with their baby sleep. I still wasn't sleeping. And for me, it looked like I would try to go to bed early because I was so tired, but it would take me forever to fall asleep. And then I would wake up at 3 or 4 in the morning and not be able to go back to sleep till 6 when my son was waking up. And so I, did a lot of searching for a long time and tried all the things that you read, which is, okay, I'll stop watching TV before bed. I'll stop eating chocolate before bed. I'll stop drinking coffee. I'll exercise every day. And those things didn't really help. And so luckily I have a background in nutrition. I've been in the health and wellness space for a long time. And so I learned about the certification for becoming certified to look at functional labs. So looking at kind of, like I've mentioned, gut health tests and hormone balance and things like that to find out what was going on in my body that was keeping me from sleeping. And so I found out I had a parasite that I probably had for 13 years from when I was traveling in Asia.
Wow.
And the thing about parasites is that they are most active at night. And so they, so they
You're not-
cause all this inflammation
So
in the middle of the night. Yeah.
So my grandmother used to complain that she had a parasite in her stomach and it was flapping around and keeping her awake at
Oh my.
night. And the only thing that would help her were like 3 shots of whiskey before she went to bed. So, I don't know if that was just an excuse to drink whiskey, but it's scarily similar to what you're talking about there. How long did they take it out eventually? Was it just is it like a big parasite or a small parasite or?
No, they can be really small. Like some of them are, you can't even see, with the naked eye. And then others, I also have had a tapeworm as well, which is
Wow.
Wow.
very interesting when that comes out. So yes, that is a rather large one.
Oh my gosh. Where did you, no wonder you started this business. I was
So do you help people see if they have parasites in their stomachs? Like, do you help them find that out?
Yes, exactly. So one of the tests I do is a stool test that shows what's living in the gut. So it's looking for pathogens like a parasite, bad bacteria, also looking at good bacteria and digestion and pretty much an overall snapshot of gut health. But yes, you can tell with the test.
I should do that.
What, you think you have a tapeworm or a parasite?
I don't know.
I thought it was my snoring. What are your recommendations about snoring?
Well, snoring is a major sign of sleep apnea. So I definitely recommend getting screened for that. Because sleep apnea, is you want to address that because it can lead to, not sleeping well is going to lead to heart disease and lots of other chronic illness possibly. So
yeah, I do wear a CPAP machine mask and I do sleep better, although it's a little irritating sometimes. And I don't snore when I wear it. So
Right. So when he doesn't wear it, it's torture. But so if somebody were to come to your office, I guess they come into an office to see you, right? If you're taking samples and things. What do
no,
you-
I actually work with people virtually because
do?
they do the test in their home and send them
Oh,
back to the
okay.
lab. Yep.
Okay. So then what's the first thing you do? I'm assuming you ask a bunch of questions or something? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it does take about a month to get the test results back that I do. So in the meantime, I'm sending them an intake questionnaire similar to what you would fill out for a doctor or any kind of health practitioner. But I'm also asking a lot of questions about their habits, about their diet, about their lifestyle, things like that, so that we can get started making some changes in those areas while we're waiting for the test results. And then once we get the test results back, then we're diving into those and correcting those imbalances.
So do you think that poor sleep is mostly like biochemical factors like you're mentioning now, or is it, I always think of it as just stress when I have difficult nights sleeping, my head starts racing. Is that chemistry or is that just the environment that I live in?
Yeah, so it's both and it's complicated, which is why there's not just an easy fix. I think that, yes, we know that, if you're going through a stressful time or, you have a presentation the next day, you might not sleep as well. And I think that's pretty normal, but, mainly the people I'm working with, it's more than that, right? Like no matter what they do, they aren't sleeping well. They've tried all the advice that's out there. They still aren't sleeping well because a lot of it is behavioral. And yes, if you're working until midnight and trying to fall asleep, you might not be able to fall asleep. So changing that can make a difference. But if you're already have made some of those changes, then there's something deeper going on. And I still call it stress. It's just stress in the body that you don't know about.
And-
So do we want to give our guest a chance to ask?
Yeah.
Yeah. Tanya, do you have a question or comment?
No, I mean, I do have a comment, no questions right now, except maybe where were you the last 4 nights? Because I didn't sleep very well, but I love your story. Like, you took something that was very important to you. It was a challenge. You figured it out through blood, sweat, and tears, and probably a lot of money, right? And then you turn that into a solution for somebody else. I mean, it's just that it's what we do as human beings. And I love the story. I think it's what I really love about it is how unique it is, right? Nobody's ever going to forget that story. They're just not.
Right. So, yeah. So Kenya, do you have a question or comment?
Well, I'm not a great sleeper. I don't think I've ever really been a great sleeper. And I think there's a lot more people who suffer from insomnia than that are really like truly diagnosed. So I guess my question is, it's twofold. What are like some of the signs and symptoms that you need to see a sleep specialist? And then what does the improvement rate look like when somebody comes to work with you?
Yes, great question. So, again, I think if someone has tried all the basics, and usually people who are coming to me, I mean, they've tried every supplement under the sun, like I did. They might even be on prescription meds, and they may or may not be working, or, a lot of people don't want to be on those. And so, yeah, so they've gone to their doctor, they've gotten blood work done, everything's normal. Like, they just can't find an answer. And so, yeah, I think for anyone, if you're having trouble falling asleep, if you're having trouble staying asleep, if you aren't getting enough sleep and you aren't feeling great the next day, like, it's most important, not necessarily the amount of sleep we get, but the quality and how we feel the next day. And, for many of my clients, it's affecting their everyday life, right? It's affecting your ability to be productive and to focus and concentrate and to be in a good mood and to be patient with people around you. So that's when, when it's affecting your life, it's time to get help. And I see it as so much of a health problem. And so, yeah, when people go through my program, it's pretty much a health restoring program. And we work together for 6 months. And when that happens and people follow my recommendations, 95% of the time, they're seeing significant improvement in the 6 months.
That's really great. I just wanted to say, part of the challenge with getting a good night's rest is that you remember all the good night's rests that you have gotten. And so there are definitely days where I wake up or, feeling completely refreshed and just ready to go. And it feels great. And then I get frustrated when every day isn't like that, right? And so, maybe that happens once a month in my case, right? And so you sort of have this baseline of great sleep, and then you get frustrated. Now it's midnight. I know what I'm going to be like when I wake up in the morning, and that just kind of adds to it. So, what do you tell a person in my situation about that?
I would say be thankful that you're sleeping great 29 to 30 days of the month.
No.
It's the opposite.
It's the opposite.
Oh, it's
only
the opposite.
once. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, I would say that, first of all, it's a great sign if you are having that one night a month, because it means your body can do it. So it's just a matter of, okay,
hope, right?
There's totally hope. And yeah, I mean, some people I work with are like, I haven't had good night's sleep in 20 years or whatever. So they tend to have less hope because, it's been so long. So, yeah, so I would say it means your body can do it, but something's getting in the way most of the time. And so it's just a matter of figuring out what that is and working on correcting that.
So Martha, I have a quick question. How many people have gut problems that affect their sleep? Because I feel like that's probably what's bothering mine.
Could be. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, none of my clients have a healthy gut. Now, is that, for some, it's just different for everyone, though, what's affecting their sleep. For some people, it is like 90% the gut. Okay. Like, your gut's a mess, let's really focus on this. And for other people, it's other things. So, but gut health is a huge factor in sleep because the good bacteria make our neurotransmitters. They actually make up to 90% of the neurotransmitters, like dopamine and serotonin and GABA, that help us feel relaxed and sleepy. And again, if there's a pathogen in your gut that's awake at night, like that's going to keep you awake. And if the lining of your gut isn't healthy, that's just, causing all this constant inflammation. And whenever there's inflammation, your body releases cortisol, which is great if that's during the day, but not great when that's the middle of the night, because that makes us wired and gives us energy and, makes us think that we're trying to survive something. And so, so the gut is a huge role in sleep for sure.
Okay, well, Richard is giving me the signal that we're coming to the end of this segment. So how do people find you?
Yeah, so my website is thecompletesleepsolution.com. And I'm on Facebook and Instagram under my business name as well. And I also have a podcast called The Insomnia Fix.
Oh,
Well, maybe we should listen to that at night before we go to
Will it
bed.
put us to sleep?
It might.
It's time for a break. So listeners, you are listening to Passage to Profit, Road to Entrepreneurship with Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart. And our special guest today, Tanya Eberhart, who is a branding specialist. And if you missed any of it, our podcast will be out tomorrow, wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll be right back. Welcome back, listeners. You are listening to Passage to Profit, Road to Entrepreneurship with Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart. Our special guest today was Tanya Eberhart. She is a personal branding expert. We're not done yet, though. We have a question for everybody who participated in the program today. This is the fun part. And the question today is, what was your favorite science fiction show or movie or character? And we're going to start with Tanya.
Oh, I knew this. All right. I'm going to tank this segment of your show right now because I don't like science fiction, anything. I'm so sorry.
So who's the best branded actor then? Something that acts in sci-fi.
The best branded actor. One of those would probably be Robert Downey Jr. He's a good one.
Yeah.
There's let's see. Well, I can't look, there's so many that run across my mind, but all I'm thinking about right now is before the show, when you guys said you were going to ask this question, I went to Google straight away and looked for science fiction movies, hoping I had seen one. Just one.
So wait. Why don't you like science fiction? I mean, it's just not a taste, or
I don't know. It's just the fictional part of it, right?
Right.
I'm more of a nonfiction kind of a person. I like the serial killer stuff and the murder and mayhem stuff, the true crime,
I think we're
right?
discovering a lot about your personal brand right now.
I know. It's frightening sometimes. But I can say this, Robert Downey Jr. played Iron Man.
Yes.
And I can assume that would be considered science fiction, right?
Yes.
Okay, there you go. That's my favorite one.
All right, you nailed it. Thank you.
We got there.
Okay, so Chris.
Yeah, so mine, and I watched every episode. Star Trek is my favorite, and Captain Kirk would be my favorite character on the show. So, absolutely.
I assumed that somebody would say Star Trek, right? I mean, and so you're the first one out of the gate. But yeah, how can you be a science fiction person and not like Star Trek?
Right.
Yeah.
So Martha, who was yours?
Well, I have to say, I'm not really a science fiction person either. And what comes to mind was Star Trek for me too. And I have memories of sitting on my dad's lap after he got off work watching Star Trek. And I thought Captain Kirk was so handsome and Spock was really cool. So that's my science fiction.
So for Martha, if she wants to go to sleep, she puts on a science fiction movie and that does the trick. Got it.
Well, there were some action ones, a lot of action ones. So
yeah,
maybe
okay.
not.
Maybe not. Okay.
What about you?
The trouble with tribbles. Yeah.
So Don't Look Up came out, I think
Oh, yeah.
last year or the year before with Leonardo DiCaprio. I thought that was a great movie. And again, I don't watch a ton of science fiction, but I thought that was a good one. And I loved Leonardo DiCaprio.
So
So
that
that
was
was
the
good.
movie where the asteroid was coming toward Earth and nobody would
Mhm.
believe it, and
The
Right.
people wouldn't believe it.
half the people wouldn't believe it, and they all died in the
Dude.
end. So
Right.
okay, All
Okay,
right,
so,
yeah,
so
okay.
okay, so Richard, what's yours?
There's so many, but I would say I liked the movie The Martian with Matt
Yes,
Damon. I've
you
I've
did.
watched that like a ton of times because here's this guy stranded on Mars, right, all by himself, and everything goes to heck, and he has to survive using his own ingenuity. So I really enjoyed watching him kind of think through all of the technical problems that he had, and he made it in the end. So I thought that was a
Yes.
great movie, very inspiring. to me.
Yes. So this was Richard's question, but I'm really torn between three. So he said I could say all three. So I mean,
Are you saying them in any particular order? Are you
I'm gonna save
starting with
best
the
one for last.
best one for last?
So the
Okay.
worst one. So really, like, who can ever forget the scene if they watch this of an alien exploding out of a guy's chest? Right.
Yeah.
So Alien was one.
Well, thanks for bringing that up. I won't
visuals.
be sleeping tonight.
For like Men in Black's hilarious. I don't know if anyone watches that, but I love Men in Black. But I have to say, I think that this was a societal changing movie, this last one. And that was the first Star Wars. I know you Star Trek fans are like, no, Star Trek, not Star Wars. I like them
You mean
both.
there's a difference?
Oh my God. When Star Wars came out, people went insane. They were what you had to go to a theater to see it. They were going 10 times. They were dressing up as like these Wookiee things and like putting buns on their head to be Princess Leia and stuff. I mean, it was insanity. But George Lucas's special effects, and it was a story everybody loves. You're just a normal person. You're going about your business. You're going to be a sheep herder, or whatever the guy was, the rest of your life, right? And then all of a sudden, you find this thing, somebody comes to you and they say, no, you're special. You're going to change the world. You've got a whole different story.
You're really passionate about that.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about it after you brought it up. And it's like, I think that's why people love that movie so much. It's like, yeah, I may be walking around, but I could be like a Jedi Knight and not know it.
Good. And you probably are.
So with that,
So with that,
we were going to go over everybody's websites one more time.
one more time.
Okay, so now we're wrapping up. So we had as our guest Tanya Eberhart with BrandFace. She is a personal branding expert, an author. She has her own podcast, Be Bold Branding, and her website is brandfacestar.com.
I learned a lot today listening to Tanya.
Right.
Think, I'm gonna pay attention to this and check out her podcast for sure.
And then we had Chris Depaolo, Protecs, Protecs Inc.com. So he helps people design and build industrial buildings, and
And I
mostly
think you have to be really smart to be able to do that. And Chris, I'm going to call you about my doghouse, so I want to target cost that.
You got
what's- right. So what's special about what he does is he really has a great method for controlling cost, which if you've ever worked with
Who
this
wants to
kind of,
control costs on a building project? I mean, that's
and then we had Martha Lewis with the Complete Sleep Solution. And that's her website, thecompletesleepsolution.com. And it was really interesting talking to her. And I think I have to talk to her some more.
yeah, she really takes it from a different perspective. And like she said, a lot of the remedies haven't worked for people. And so I think this is definitely something I'm also going to check out too. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't need instructions for falling asleep on the sofa, but it's
No,
the rest of
but-
the evening that's hard.
There are those nights that you can't go to sleep. Anyway, we won't get into
We
that.
won't get into that. Anyway, well, we need to sign off now, everybody. And so, but Passage to Profit will be back next week with another episode at this station. And before we go, I'd like to thank the Passage to Profit team, Noah Fleischman, our producer, Alicia Morrissey, our program director, and Mark Wilson, our syndication manager. Our podcast can be found tomorrow. Anywhere you find your podcast, just look for the Passage to Profit Show. And don't forget to like us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And remember, While the information provided here during the program is believed to be correct, never take a legal step without checking with your legal professional first. Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart for Passage to Profit, signing off, and we'll see you next week.